So the fourth show of our season, Matilda, is started as a book by British author Roald Dahl, a children's book, Matilda. And it is great. Like, I read it when I was a child, but my 7-year-old and I have just started reading it because he needs to read the whole thing before we see the show. So we're working on it. And it's so charming and funny. There is a little bit of that, like you sometimes see with like the fairy tales and like especially some of the British literature, I think, where there's like just a little hint of mean every once in a while. Though you also see that with those old Charlie Brown shows where people are calling each other names and stuff. Like there's been some change in how we talk to kids. But that it is such a brilliant, clever book. And then we've had all these other, iterations of it. The movie with Danny DeVito, and then the musical, and like a musical movie. So what's your favorite of the?
It's funny because I too read it to Sophie when she was about 7. It's funny. I was working at a theater in Santa Rosa, California, and it was in a 1-bedroom, and I created another little bedroom for her when they came to visit me. And we laid on the floor every night, and we would in our own little like tent of a room for her and read Matilda, and she loved it. And then we had seen the movie with Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, and it was so funny, and Sophie loved it, so we watched it over and over and over again. And that little girl who played Matilda was just the cutest and sweetest. And then we went to New York and saw the movie, or the Broadway play, and it was the set was very it was busy. Like there was it was Scrabble pieces, because it was all obviously built around children, and Scrabble pieces, and the choreography. These kids were out of this world. They're great dancers, but it was really, really kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of ballistic, and a lot to take in at once. And we were sitting very close, so it was a lot to see. And then the movie, the Netflix movie, is fantastic. I love the version that they did with the movie. Trunchbull is normally played by Agatha Trunchbull, who's the mean teacher to little Matilda. Is usually played on the stage by a man, and but in the movie it's Emma Thompson, and she is just great. And then the lady who plays Miss Honey, who's the sweet kind of savior for Matilda teacher, is just wonderful in the movie. It really is. The movie is the Netflix movie is a really great musical adaptation of the stage musical. So when we've talked about it, even Wayne, when he was here, we talked about doing it many times. But there is a lot of everyone is kind of mean to each other, except Matilda and Miss Honey, and they're like the sweet, and Miss Phelps, who's the librarian. But they're it's funny in kind of a British way. They're mean to each other in kind of like an overbearing, over the top kind of way. Her parents are really these cartoon characters that are just out of this world, outlandish kind of, and kind of, they call her a boy all the time because the father wants a boy instead of a girl, and sweet Matilda has to deal with her parents at home, and then go to school and deal with her mean teacher, but she also is this brilliant child who can, at 5 years old, can read and do math, and then discovers that she kind of has this like special power where she can harness her energy and do things to get back at Miss Trunchbull. But she's also a really great storyteller, and so you kind of see like the stories that she tells are in kind of like correlation to what's happening in her own life, and then kind of like foreshadowing and kind of clairvoyant about her teacher. And it's the fashioning of the story by Roald Dahl is kind of just amazing, like how it all kind of fits together like a beautiful quilt. And these children that are going to be in the show here in Wichita are really unbelievable. We had so many great kids who auditioned for these parts. I was a little nervous, to be quite honest, when I thought, because we need 10. We have 10 Matilda and 9 of her friends. And then we have a couple of like standby swing kids who are learning all the parts in case someone gets sick. And I was nervous that we wouldn't find those kids here in town because they really have to be able to sing and then also dance. And these kids have great voices, but I was worried about the dance portion. But these kids are great. It's going to be so much fun, and there's lots of dancing for those kids. And then we have the resident ensemble who are the college kids who also have to dance a lot. And then we have these great theater actors from New York that are coming in, and the lady who's playing Mrs. Wormwood, Laura Lynn McClellan, has been here as a resident ensemble member in 2005, I think she was here, and she went on to have a great Broadway career, and she was in Matilda on Broadway and understudied this role of Miss Wormwood, I believe, and so it's nice to have her to come back, and I'm choreographing the show, so it's fun to put my spin on that part of the show and make it feel a little bit more organic to our version of the show and not what they did in New York. So I'm looking forward to that and to this telling of the story and for people to come see these amazing local Kansas kids that are in this show.
Yeah. One of the things that I've often said that I love about our productions is like, because we do not have Broadway budgets, it means that we're not building, the boxing ring that comes out into the or the
right.
like the flying car. Like we're not doing those things, which I think has this real benefit to us of like you're really focusing on the story because the story is what's paramount, and we're not going to have the set that moves with the pieces coming out, which is it is cool.
Yeah.
But that enables us to really tell the story like in a very pure way.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled to see your version of it. I also saw it on Broadway. We took a patron group, and it was one of the shows we saw. And like pretty much any time children are on stage, like I just weep. Like they just have to stand out there. There's just something about kids that are so driven that they like want to be out there and like. Yeah. It's beautiful. And there's the one song in the show, When I Grow Up, that is just like
Bring your tissues.
Bring your tissues.
Yeah.
But I do think it's just such a beautiful story about like how resilient children are and how, one kindness from one or two adults in their lives, it changes everything, So I think it'll also be like a really, like anybody who's an educator, anybody who has educators in their families, like this, it'll really resonate because you can it's a really great example of how, one teacher, one caring adult just kind of swoops in and changes everything for her.
Yeah. And the music of the show and the underscoring is really beautiful. It's not a show where there's a blackout and you have a scene change. It's very cinematic, so everything runs from one to the other, and so everything has to be choreographed, the set moves and everything. And the hope is that we'll be able to use, because again, the kids are great, but the resident ensemble that's coming this year too is really spectacular. And to be able to use them and to move them around the space and use them as kind of the set movers, and also make it somewhat interesting to watch that portion of the show too, to this beautiful, like the strings in the show are just gorgeous. And there's just some really beautiful moments. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really great production. I'm very excited to get to do it.
Well, I know that you don't spend a lot of time talking about how great you are as a choreographer,
nice.
But I think I'm so excited that you're doing this show because I feel like the choreography I've seen you do that's like showing a child experience or an adolescent experience, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how it feels. I remember when you choreographed Freaky Friday, and there were some numbers where I was like, what they are dancing on stage is what it feels like to be 16. Like it's just, and I'm not even a dancer. And so for me to just watch that and be like, oh, that is what it feels like in your body. Like you just have this real gift for like getting the feelings like into the movement. And so I'm excited to see this for that reason.
Because I feel like I'm a little kid myself still. Yeah, well, thank you. That's very nice. I mean, I am very excited to do it, and I'm excited to be able to do that for the little kids. And these kids are, I say little kids, they're from 9 to 13, I think, maybe is the oldest one. And there's some really good dancers in this town, and some of these kids are really great dancers. So that's exciting to be able to like have them showcased on stage too. especially because I know a lot of them because I live here, so I see them a lot. And then to also be able to bring the resident ensemble, which I auditioned all of them and made them do this crazy dance for Frozen, so that it had lots of tricks and stuff in it. So I know that what they can do. So it's fun to be able to get them and kind of like mold all that stuff and kind of wow the audience with this fun creative these fun creative kids. So it'll be fun. Yeah, I'm excited. It's a lot of work, but I'm excited.